Yeah, but
Well, maybe I'll
the reason we have this podcast program today is that we want people to know more about you, more about Debbie Malenko, you know, and heyday of Japanese women's wrestling, and you are
right.
in there and experienced, and you're part of that history, you're part of the legacy, and your own story in history. I'm an old dude.
We're all getting older.
Yeah. Oh,
but we don't care about how we look.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go. Um, a lot of times, a lot of people, have this, Zoom and the podcast thing, and the entire time you have to be looking at some dumbass, guy talking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's not that interesting.
No, but some people want to be on screen. Man, they might be the only time they want to be on screen. So it's just not us.
I think they want to see. They might want to see Debbie. That's the only we don't need to be on it, but sometimes if it's somebody,
right?
Well, people might find it intriguing. What is the face that goes with that voice? What do they look like? This is what they sound like, but what do they look like? So,
well, some disc jockey guy talking, and you have to be looking at the screen at all times. It's like a lot of times I don't even want to see these guys.
Right, they might have the face for radio, right?
Yeah, Mike.
Exactly.
And a little background they created, and they think they're the big DJ or something. And what's important is what we talk about, the contents that the thing we talk about, the things we can share. But with Deb, we have first-hand experience with each other, so
we can talk about whatever that either of you'd like to talk about. We can go in any direction. We can talk about stuff that's going on today. We can talk about your time start with Tampa. It was Tampa, yeah. When you two met in Tampa, we can start from there. It's up to you. Whatever you have fun.
Yeah, wasn't it when you brought the contract over? Isn't that the first time we met?
The first time we actually met was when we did the TV, the location.
The Catch You, wasn't it?
Yeah. Catch Me. Yeah. See, before that, we talked on the phone a few times.
Right, but meeting in person, that was it. That was that was a fun one. That TV show was a lot of fun.
Right. Yeah, Dave didn't talk about it, so we can talk about that.
Yeah, why don't we talk about it now? Well, Debbie, when before you met Fumi, you were wrestling. You were talking about a TV show that was really fun. Can you tell us more about that? Because I'm not that familiar with it.
So it was a TV show that they did in Japan, and it was called Catch Me.
Yeah, Catch Me. And a bunch of there's every week celebrity or somebody famous or comedian or movie actor. This time it was Tatsumi Fujinami of New Japan Pro Wrestling. He was a star of the show. This person actually go to all over the on Earth, Africa, Europe, America, and bring his friend over and meet people and stay with people, and then at the end of the trip, they would do the tag of war. Remember?
Yeah, and I had my hands all bandaged up because that's when I had the accident with my fingers.
Right. People don't know about that, so we'll go over on that.
Okay.
There was a TV show that Fujinami came to Tampa, Florida, and visit people like Karl Gotch, Joe Malenko School, and spend time with people. And Deb was one of the people we visited. She was a firefighter, volunteer firefighter. So we had
Yeah,
experience. We filmed some at the Land O'Lake Fire Department.
it was a volunteer fire department. We even went up on the roof and we were, using the hoses, climbing the
We
ladder.
practiced. Yeah.
Yeah. That was
So
a long time
TV
ago.
show, Justin. Oh, that's a network TV show on Sunday night. It was a real popular TV show.
What channel
So
was it on,
actually,
Fumi-san?
It was TV Asahi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Sunday night, 7 o'clock, 30 minutes program, but fairly high budgeted, And then I was one of their writers, and yeah, way
Now,
back
Catch
when.
Me.
they had different people that came over too, because there's 4 or 5 different people that came
Yeah,
over.
young
with
guy.
him.
Yeah, that's basically Fujinami's sidekick for that episode.
Is this episode on YouTube anywhere?
I can make you a disc. I have it on VHS.
Oh, wow.
It
So do
was
I.
1991.
But that was a
Do you
really
still have
hot
the
period
VHS
for Deb, are you still there? Are you cutting out a little bit?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep. Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Again.
Yeah, so 91 was a really, really hot period for both men's and female wrestling. And
In Japan.
In Japan. So there was a lot of like wrestling adjacent television shows, or a lot of wrestling stars showing up on like a Downtown or any of the like variety show, like late night shows. I guess this would be a question for both of you about the time, because that was, to me, that's the pure like bubble period peak time, both like in Japan as a culture, economy, but also in the wrestling culture. There were some really big Tokyo Dome shows coming up in 92, 93. So for all in different companies too. So just in general, your memories of Japan in 91, 92, what was it like for both of you?
Oh, I was in it and I was so involved, and I didn't realize, the wrestling was booming or anything like that. It was just all hindsight that wrestling was big back then. And then I was so involved that I didn't feel it. Really, seriously.
You had your hands in everything though, with the TV and the baseball magazine, and you were pretty much across the board in any aspect of wrestling though.
No, I don't really.
I think so. You were
my work there.
I know you don't like to brag, but you were a very busy man back in those days. You were.
Yeah, I was already.
And I am surprised.
Color commentary for All Japan Women's too at the time.
Exactly, and I'm surprised too that nobody has gotten you to, write things for wrestling, as far as matches and gimmicks and storylines. You're, to this day, I think you would be one of the best at it if someone would just put you to the job. Because you know more about wrestling than anybody I know.
Well, I've written many books in Japanese, so I've done not share a little bit. But I'm basically a writer. But I'm not here. We're not here to talk about me. And
you're so humble.
For today's fans and podcast listeners and serious wrestling fans, and the ones who wants to study history and the one want to know the glimpse. You and I talked about the glimpse thing,
That's right.
And the Bill Otten, my friend, photographer from Orlando, Florida, who's been working for Japanese Wrestling Magazine since 1981, and he went to Malenko Wrestling School, and there was the training camp, the training session where Karl Gotch, actually training guys with American guys. And
that's how I got to Japan. He took photos of Karl Gotch training, and I happened to be there training with him.
Yeah.
And that's
only
the whole
female trainee. Yeah, because it was a bunch of UWF style guys, and Karl Gotch's son-in-law Masami Soranaka, and Mr. Malenko's in there, and other guys like Toi Ishikawa, the Jumbo Bretter, the Bart Vale, the Willie, Wilkins Jr., Yeah, a whole bunch of the guys who eventually went to UWF as an American UWF type wrestler, and there was shoot style wrestling before MMA. It was the closest thing to MMA, don't you think?
Yeah, wasn't that the UWF?
UWF, yeah.
Yeah.
And among that trainee, under being trained under Karl Gotch, I saw a girl, one female trainee said, "Who is this? Who is this girl?" Then I found out that was Debbie. Are you with me, Justin?
Oh yeah.
Have you seen those photos?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And the videos.
You've seen them. Okay.
I'm there.
Oh, okay.
I'm in possession of some of the really good ones. I like the Santa Claus one that we'll show later.
Okay.
Merry
That's
Christmas
much later
one.
on. The Santa Claus
that
one
was
came from
Mexico.
Mexico.
That's right. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. One of my favorite ones was from the dojo. I think it was the Tampa dojo. Was Gotch and you and Norman Smiley and Soranaka.
Yeah, Norman Smiley. Yeah, that was a photo I was talking about.
Yeah.
That's how I met Deb.
It was that photo or that day or?
No, that was a photo. I wasn't even there.
I see.
It was not the day to shoot Deb's photos. It was Karl Gotch training a bunch of new guys, to send these American wrestlers to UWF. American wrestlers at Malenko Dojo had to kind of adjust to what's coming. They're all being sent to Japan. UWF guy, and you have a match against people like Akira Maeda, Nobuhiko Takada, Fujiwara, all these serious shoot style wrestlers at the time, the best in the world. And
here's a girl sitting in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. And then this girl was sitting in the middle of training. Who is this girl? And Karl Gotch, for the record, Karl Gotch has never trained a woman.
Never before and never after.
Never after. Yeah. And Deb should be proud that she's actually the only one god of wrestling Karl Gotch ever trained. Oh my gosh, So I had to know who she was. And to make a long story short, and then I gave, I've heard that her goal as a wrestler to go to Japan, and it's like, well, that can be done, right? And, yeah.
So Deb, when you were taking that picture, around that time when you were training, I mean, in your head, did you have a goal specifically, or were you just there and I'm going to do the best that I can, take on any opportunities that come up? Or did you have a specific destination? Did you I want to go to Japan, or I want to compete in a certain, whatever? I mean, what was your mindset when you were that age?
When I started, goodness, I was 18 turning 19 when I started training there. And it was, I've always played sports. I've always been active, and I didn't have anything at the time. I wasn't doing any sports, didn't have anything to do. So a friend of mine took me up to the school, and I'm like, this is awesome. So I was training with the Malenkos, and every weekend we're up there, we're training, we're wrestling. And then I look over because there's two rings, and Karl Gotch is over there. He's training, these other guys, and I'm watching what they're doing, and I'm like, I want to do that. That looks awesome. That's, because I wrestled in high school, and I'm like, that's more collegiate. That's more what I'm used to. So he let me in the ring. I'm over there. I'm just sitting outside the ring with my elbows on the apron, watching what they're doing. He looks over at me and he waves me in the ring, and I wasn't going to say no. I just jumped in there and I did what he told me to do. And when Bill was there taking pictures, I didn't know what he was taking them for. It wasn't, knowledge around the school, what he was doing. He's just taking pictures of the guys. And, they're like, hey, sit down. We got a photo taken. And I didn't know any better of it. I didn't know where that picture was going. I didn't know it was for, a Japanese wrestling magazine, but it it pretty much led to my future. That's what made it for me.
The funny thing is, you didn't even know who Karl Gotch was, really.
I didn't. I thought he was a badass old guy that was, put every time he touched somebody, they're grimacing in pain. And I'm like, how does he do that? That's what I wanted to learn. And it was the coolest thing ever. So
Well, it's like remind you of kind of like the TV show Kung Fu, the grasshopper. This is a
yeah,
master guy.
yeah, exactly.
David Carradine.
Probably today's young fan don't even know what the TV show Kung Fu is, but
Probably not.
he's like a Bruce Lee type of person, and just you've seen the master, like real life.
Snatch this pebble from my hand. Exactly.
And it was also a time before like UFC or MMA was really a thing.
Like 2 or 3 years before UFC.
So it really had a different. To Debbie, when you saw that, how did you think about that? And then when you were comparing it to like what people thought when you said pro wrestling, because the ideas about pro wrestling, especially around then, were really different between Japan and between the U.S.
There's things about American pro wrestling that I liked. I idolized like Macho Man Randy Savage and those guys. They were just so cool.
And there were a whole bunch of famous wrestlers' photos up on Malenko, Malenko School's wall, like a wall of fame, masked superstars, and all these people.
Right. But well, you see my gimmick. Goodness, I had the least sexiest outfit ever, which I have Fumi to thank for. He's the one that came up with the singlet idea, because I didn't know what to do because I had no gimmick. I had, I was like, well, I wrestle, submission, suplex, this is me. But it was the, what came to be known as the catch wrestling. It was no gimmick. It's wrestling. It's spontaneous. And
and also you had to dress like kind of like a female version of Steiner Brothers at the time.
Yeah,
that was the image, the serious athlete.
That was the image. The serious athlete, the leather
can happen to be pretty, but that's not what you're selling.
No, I was in it for the sport, for the wrestling of it. I wasn't, trying to be a bikini model, which I could never do, by the way. But it worked for me. It was the athletic, and that's being myself and what I loved about it, and that's kind of what drew me to Karl Gotch's style. It was just so, it was just pure wrestling. It was awesome. But being able to not even use any force, touch somebody and they're screaming in pain, it was like the ultimate thing. It was like, I want to learn that. That was awesome.
Yeah, Achilles tendons, the cricket head scissors, and the move now today they call it kimura, but it was a double wrist lock, arm locked, and just
right.
Yeah, seriously.
So everybody's using the arm lock now, so I've got to do something different.
But those submission, it was all dojo technique, but it came to life kind of. UWF wrestlers in Japan started using the actual match in front of the audience. So that was the time they started educating Japanese audience with like, these are the legitimate moves that works. Right. UWF wrestlers never bounced off the ropes. They just cut off all the fancy things, what pro wrestling used to be. And they really, audience and the whole wrestling community believed that UWF was going to change wrestling into legitimate contest. But that's another subject for another day. That
there's a spot for the gymnastics of it and the showmanship.
That's fine. Yes, I love it too.
You can never get away from the fundamentals though, because wrestling is basically wrestling. You have to know the fundamentals. Everything else is icing on the cake. It looks pretty, it's great. But how many times do you watch a match going, why the hell would that guy stand there and let him do that? Or why would he lay there for so long and wait for him to jump?
We share the same experience as a kid. You try some moves with your friends' backyard, and you want to do drop kicks and stuff like that. That's fine, But the more you know about it, the more you want to learn. There's more to it. And
Yeah.
to fast
And you
forward
gotta
a
make
little bit, I got the phone. I called Mr. Boris Malenko's house. His home before cell phone, the ground phone telephone that I had. Mr. Malenko's phone number, his house. I called him, and got your number, and I called your house, middle of nowhere. Just like a light red out of blue. And may I speak to Deborah? And if you remember,
Yep,
and I
yeah.
heard, yeah, and I heard, I think I'm making you nervous, and I introduced myself very politely, and I heard you only wanted to come to Japan, and it's like that can be done, and are you interested? And yeah,
Yeah.
and
And of
then
course, why would a 19-year-old girl say no to a stranger calling her on the phone and saying come to a
from
different
Japan.
country? Yeah.
Strange, huh? Then I mean, and almost like a flu that the TV deal came up, with this TV show that I was already involved. The Fujinami is going to Tampa. I'm flying over there. And this is a great opportunity to meet you in person for the first time, and you can be the part of the story that the fire department will be another one of the places we'll be visiting. And then
Right.
Fujinami meet young volunteer firefighter Div at the Londo Lake Fire Department. That was no Justin. I'll show you that the whole episode of it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's an episode that the older guys who we visited, like Willie, Joe Malenko, everybody that we gather up at the Malenko Wrestling School to work out, and then Karl Gotch shows up, the air freezes. And,
Yeah, we went
yeah,
to the beach for part of it too, didn't we? Because
yeah,
Fujinami, part
that
of
was the
the training.
lecture part that the Fujinami is giving you lecture that the mindset and the mentality that
Yeah.
would be needed to become a professional wrestler.
Right. And don't forget where you came from.
Yeah, that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is this also
Fujinami's
from the
prime
same
time.
time as when Suzuki and Funaki came
Oh no,
over?
years before that.
Ah, okay. It was before
Yeah.
us. Okay. So that was 80.
Funaki and Minoru Suzuki will go over there when they form Pancras,
Ah, so that's like later.
94.
Okay.
Yeah, because they were with UWF, and that the UWF will break off to three different groups: Fujiwara Gumi and Akira Maeda's Rings and Takada's UWFI. They broke into two different groups. Then that broke Carl's heart, because UWF was such a good thing going, but the differences in opinion, and they had to go separate way, chasing the same dream.
Just three different ways.
Yeah, well, that's a big subject, and that should be another subject for another day.
Time, yeah.
Yeah, but the Malenko school was associated with Malenko. I mean, Fujiwara was very much associated with Carl and Malenko school so much that was the way,
So, Debbie, you were on the plane when you were 19 going to Japan.
I had to come back to Florida one more time to sign the contract.
Okay, tell me about that.
If you remember that the meeting we had at the Sizzler's restaurant on Dale Mabry.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
That's the best place to go after your training too, because you could get chicken breast all you wanted. It was awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
We had meeting. Mr. Malenko was there. Masami Soranaka, son-in-law of Carl. You and your mom, me. We all sat down and went over that. This is the plan. Debbie's going to Japan, and not just a couple weeks, but she had to stay 6 months. Yeah, first 6 months straight for the training session, and debut you over there.
Yeah. And that was one of those things where I was so naive at the time. It was like, okay. And you're like, oh, and by the way, this is what you're going to get paid. So I agree before I even looked at that. I was like, okay, I'll go.
It was rookie money,
It was rookie money. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I ate more than I made
Well,
in
because
a week.
because the people expect that when you go to Japan, you'll be making mega money or something. But
Mm,
it was rookie deal. Sorry about that.
mm.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't know me, and I was still green as could be. So, they were
And I
taking
didn't
a
tell you
chance.
that nobody will be speaking English at the All Japan Women's Dojo.
Well, they knew a little. Hi, Debbie. you know. So, but they were awesome. They tried really hard because everybody, I guess, gets a little English in school. I mean, you
Yeah,
guys
yeah,
learned a
yeah.
little bit. Yeah. So
And
it
also at the
wasn't bad.
time, yeah, people expected that like, well, Debbie will be like a Chris Benoit with New Japan Dojo, you know?
Yeah,
The
come in as a greenhorn or a new
Yeah,
person and just train up. Yeah,
yeah.
which is
So
exactly what it was.
foreign-born dojo trainee, the first
yeah,
Yeah,
one,
it had to be talented and very young, you know?
yeah,
like Jay White now.
right. But
Yeah,
you earn your
JY. Well,
spot.
there's a whole bunch of New Japan guys, but have done that. Two called Scorpio.
Hmm.
Yeah, quite a few. But the women, it was different story. That this Deb
Now
was
before
kind of an
before I
experiment.
was there, yeah, before I was there, Medusa was there, but
Yeah, but she
she
came
was
in as
pretty-
star.
okay,
Yeah, she already had a 3 years or so experience as AWA champion.
right.
And there was another girl from Canada, Yukon Erica, who was a bodybuilder, but she only stayed just a couple months and kind of, I guess, got homesick and left or something. So
Now
it
was
was
that after me,
before you.
before me? Okay,
Yeah, yeah. So there was like an experiment, this girl could stay and, work like Japanese,
right.
blend in, mingle, and you'll be the only American on the bus. And you'll be traveling 350 nights a year, town to town to town to town.
Now the thing that really helped me out was Esther and Cynthia
Right from
Morano were there.
Mexico. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So that helped out a lot because I took Spanish in high school. So I knew a little bit. So we were able to communicate.
And
And
Esther
then
was speaking pretty good Japanese.
yeah, Esther was really good at Japanese and she knew pretty good English. So that was a tremendous help.
Yeah.
So the timing of that was perfect.
And Justin, at the time, the All Japan women's roster, you're talking Bo Nakano, Aja Kong, the Bison Kimura, the Kyoko Kimura, the Manami Toyota, the Akira Hokuto, they had everybody in there.
Inoue, Kyoko
Inoue, of
Inoue,
course. Kyoko Inoue,
Takako
Takako
Inoue.
Inoue. Yeah. Sakie Hasegawa, Mita
All the,
Shimoda, everybody.
all the big stars were at the time when I was
Very much
there.
active, full time.
Yeah.
But that generation is still looked at like that golden generation, Debbie included. I think the hardcore fans now feel that same way. Especially, there are more and more fans getting exposed to it through different ways on the internet.
Because thanks to YouTube era.
Exactly, and it's not just talking English speaking, kind of like not just the States, but over in Europe too. It's interesting how it's spreading, but
Well,
that's how I perceive
Japanese
it being
wrestling
perceived.
community always had a different interpretation and understanding about women's professional wrestling.
Yeah,
See, in
and
Japan, historically, though, women's wrestling were never a part of men's group.
stood
Women's
on its own.
company
Yeah.
always had all female wrestlers and separate shows, different
And I,
promotions.
I think
Yeah,
the
different
women
TV
at
shows.
the women at that time, they were looking at the men's wrestling because, we talked all the time, and even Kyoko Inoue was like, we're watching American wrestling. We're learning from tape, we're learning from TV. They're stealing, or not stealing, but, looking at the moves and trying to use what they see. So they were just soaking up the culture and trying to learn everything they could and do things like the men did. And I think that helped them be better stars in their own right because it wasn't the girly wrestling. It was the hardcore. When you got hit hard. I
Yeah,
mean,
very hard hitting.
when you did a drop kick from Toyota, you were knocked on your ass and it hurt because you're taking shots. It's they're laying it in. You weren't just selling a swing and a miss, like, oh, that was supposed to hit, I better sell it. You were getting hit and it hurt. So we were wrestling with injuries. People were getting teeth knocked out, concussions. I got my head split open, my nose broke. Well, my ankle got broken.
Right.
But
Right.
legitimately, we're hitting each other, and we're hitting each other hard. And I think that's what people are seeing when they're watching, the wrestling from back in the day was, oh my God, that looks painful. Well, it was. You're actually seeing these people take a hit. And it's, they cared about the wrestling. They were willing to work hard, take a beating, and put over a good show. And I don't know that you're getting that a lot. At least at the time, women's wrestling in this country wasn't like that at all. But, there's a few people now that give me hope that they're actually doing these things. They're
Today's women's wrestling in the States,
today's is so
much
better.
better. Yeah.
So much better than it was. But, back in the day, they were serious about the wrestling. And I think that's why people like that era, because it was good.
The roster, the All Japan women's roster was so strong that they're all great athletes going 100 miles an hour. And, it was just nothing like that. I mean, anywhere else.
When you get girls hooking up IVs on the bus because they're dehydrated and they're playing with the flu, they're going from town to town on the bus, you're on a road trip, you're getting your head stitched up on the bus, and it's legitimate. You're getting your butt kicked, but you're doing it and you're loving it.
Yeah.
If you had the chance, Debbie, to do what you did back then, but today in 2020, knowing what knowing what we all know about concussions, and we just have more knowledge about how to stay healthy, would you do it again? Or if you have a daughter, would you let your daughter do that? Where do you stand, or how do you feel now?
So with the concussions, my partner is a walking example of someone that had way too many.
Saki Hasegawa, you're talking about.
Yes, she had way too many concussions, and I don't know how you avoid it. I mean, she took a lot of big hits. There's things you can do to avoid it nowadays. Don't stop with the chair shots.
They don't do that anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are things you can do to avoid it. But the one thing, and the one thing that we learned from the get-go was don't take big moves. No big bumps. You shouldn't be taking bump after bump after bump. The big ones like the, off the top corner,
big
5 times in one
suplexes
match. Yeah, you shouldn't be doing that too many times in a match, because one, people are thinking, oh, it doesn't really hurt because you can take 3 or 4 in a match. You're delegitimizing the big moves. You're putting yourself through more damage. And the thing that Professor Malenko always told us was, save it for the finish. One big move, don't take the big bumps in the match. Save it. You got to protect yourself. You got to protect your body, or else you won't last. You won't have a career. So, and that's why I like, my style a little bit better, because it's, mat wrestling. I've got some neck damage from German suplexes, but I'm not paralyzed. I don't have, like the Kurt Angle issues.
Yeah.
But that's from, just doing too much. And, there's ways to work around it.
They was doing Northern Light suplex, German suplexes, back in 1991.
Yeah.
92.
Dragon suplex.
Dragon suplex, the full Nelson suplex, all got. Yeah.
which is, looked at as pretty, not, it's pretty in vogue now. It's modern, and that's what a lot of the young guys and girls, that's how they're wrestling. Like Fumi, we were talking about that blood sport. It's pretty much the style that Debbie was doing.
Because they studied old tapes.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And the more you
And at the
study,
time, there was no such thing as MMA, UFC,
Yeah.
It was Japanese wrestling was very much the closest thing. And you have to remember the fact that Debbie was doing, these things and having matches with Japanese wrestlers with pretty much with this language barrier too. You just got to go out there and do it.
That's right.
and the good thing is we worked so often and we worked together, like on the bus. Goodness, we were on the road constantly. We had so much time together. We could communicate pretty good. We found our way to communicate between English, Spanish, and Japanese. You could have a circle of girls from all three different countries, and in a sentence, you'd have all three different languages, and everybody understood it. We basically,
pretty complicated 6-woman tag team high spots.
Yeah, exactly. But you're throwing all these different languages out there, calling a spot, and everybody gets
Well,
it.
then it got to the point where
we
you
learn to
look at each
communicate.
other and kind of know what's going on.
Yep. Yeah, you learn to communicate, and you get your own language. You get your own, you get in the ring with someone so often that
Let's go double.
you
Yeah,
get your
to the
flow.
corner.
Yeah. And you
Elbow.
learn how to make each other look good. Because ultimately, the better the match, it doesn't matter who wins or loses, basically, with wrestling. And people will disagree with me. It doesn't matter who goes over. It matters how good the match was.
Yeah,
If you
and
make
who fights harder, right?
Well, if you make their stuff look good, they make your stuff look good, you work together and you get your stuff in, and people would just love the match.
And
And
yeah, I enjoy the match,
exactly.
Of course.
And that's really what it's all about for me is, is it an enjoyable match?
And there was
Are
a
people
time that I don't know how to put it, but now that people understand and have better understanding about the whole wrestling business, so much information's out there now that we can, openly talk about these things. But remember, there was a time that there was 2 finishes going in the match. I mean, it only happens in Japan. Justin?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's true.
they
You
give
get
you
the
2.
thumbs up.
Yeah,
You get the thumbs up or
they give you
thumbs
2
down.
different
Yep.
finishes. Then there's a manager, Jimmy.
Yeah, sitting
Yeah,
ringside. Yeah,
sitting in the
Jimmy sitting
ringside,
ringside.
who's holding a pencil. If you're holding a cigarette, this this team goes over. If you're holding this ballpoint pen in your right hand, this team will go over. They give you 2 different finish.
Yeah, I
Then they
hated
just
those so much.
look over there during the match, look over there, and said, Debbie's team is going over. You go, all right, Remember that time?
I hated those so much. Oh my goodness. We did, I can't remember who it was. It was a tag team match.
Yeah.
And I know it was Hasagawa and myself, but I can't remember who we were working
Either
against.
Mita, Shimoda, Manami
It
Toyota,
was,
somebody like that. Kyoko
we got to
Inoue.
like, we got to like 30 minutes and I'm like, are you kidding me? And you always have the seconds around the outside. And I'm like, so, so what? And she's like, oh, Debbie, keep go. Go. And I'm like, then she's like, oh, Debbie, you go down. I'm like, damn it. But it took him forever. I guess he was trying to figure out the flow of the match, because when you don't know who's going over, it's okay, let's do your high spots. And you're just in the match and you're like, you get the feeling like, okay, this is a good time for a false finish. So you're like, okay, you get your comeback now. And you just work together, because when you're in the ring, you can kind of feel the energy from the crowd. You can feel when they're getting bored. You can feel when they're, you want to fake them out by doing a false pin or something. So when you're in the ring, you're just calling it, you're going by the feel.
Intuitively, yes.
Yeah, but then when you get through that and you're like, okay, can we finish now? It's been half an hour, and the referee's like, no, we don't know yet. It's like, okay, I'm getting a full Nelson on this one, and we're just going to take a powder here for a minute. Everybody gets a rest. It was like, oh my goodness. But I hated those matches because he would just mess with us. I think he liked to do that. He liked to torture us.
Oh, he wanted to see who fights better, harder, who works
Yeah.
harder. And those things are very important. We call it in Japan English fighting spirit, right?
I
I mean,
call
like
it
English word
screwing with the
created in
talent.
Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, fighting spirit is very important thing in Japan.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like the underdog in America. People want to see the underdog win. Everything's working against you, but you're fighting and you're fighting and you're getting knocked down, you're getting up, and that's the
The
fighting
audience
spirit.
is with you,
Yeah,
really.
exactly.
Really get into it, yeah.
Everybody loves an underdog. No, doesn't matter where you come from.
Yeah.
Especially in
Yeah.
Japan, it seems like if depending the heel or baby face, it doesn't matter if the wrestler shows how hard they're trying, how hard they give in the match, that will always heat up a match or get that wrestler really, really over with the Japanese
And
crowd.
babyface heel things is almost very subtle in Japan. Of
Yeah.
course, if you look at Bo Nakano, Aja Kong, they dress like heel, but they actually very much babyface in that ring sometimes,
Oh yeah.
Don't you think, Deb?
I think so. Bull Nakano had her nunchucks and Aja had her big
The
metal
can.
canister. Yeah. But there was, I don't know, there wasn't really a heel baby
No.
face a lot. It was
Very
just
subtle. All
very
characters.
subtle. Yeah.
Yeah.
More
Own
sport.
person.
Yeah, it was always more sport than it was storyline. And I love that about Japanese wrestling.
Yeah, we have to
'Cause-
add that because there was no mic. There was no big promo. You tell
unless
stories in that ring.
No, but if you got Akira Hokuto in the ring, you didn't need a microphone. She could yell and everybody could hear her, and she could entertain a crowd just by yelling obscenities and bad things at you. So
What was different about working with Hokuto than working with other wrestlers?
her energy, she was just a fireball. She had constant energy, but she would carry you through it.
And
It was like,
also, she had her share of this big damage in her rookie year. Akira Hokuto broke her neck and took a year off and came back, so she knew how it was to be off, and she broke her neck, in the rookie year, and everybody thought she was done, but he just no, and she's not quitting, and took a year
Right.
off and came back.
And I think that's one of the reasons why she was able to just bring people along with her, like inspire people, give them the energy to get through a match, is because, she wouldn't quit and she wouldn't let you quit. It was like, I know you're tired, but come on, we got to do this. It was like, yeah, she could just pull the energy out of you. And all of her matches were exciting. Never a boring match, never a timeout.
Akira Hokuto,
If
yeah.
you, yeah. So I loved her matches. I loved working with her because of that, because it's just like, if you're constantly moving, you can get through a half an hour match and it's like, wow, has it been that long already? We're finished. They were awesome.
Justin, there's a not the entire full match, it's edited version, but there's a single match footage. Debbie Malenko against Akira Hokuto at Korakuen Hall.
YouTube?
That had to be my favorite match ever. Yeah, of mine.
And a beautiful
Working with
German
her,
suplex
yeah.
too that night.
I've seen a version that's 7 minutes long, 7 or 8 minutes long.
It was actual one was a little bit longer.
Oh, so it was the edited versions. Probably some like Samurai TV, like a clip.
Yeah, and then that Best of All Japan Women DVD series or something.
Something like that.
How dare they? They should never edit my matches.
Well, actually, Deb, you have most of your matches that we converted from VHS into DVDs. Remember?
Yeah, you sent that to me, and honestly, I haven't been able to play it yet.
Oh, okay,
I
it's
don't.
hours and hours of your own matches. You know, have
Yeah,
somebody have somebody upload it on YouTube so people can share it.
yeah,
know?
I don't know if it's like a different format or something, or a different software
DVD
program. Yeah, I went to play it on my computer, and it
doesn't play.
there was something funky with it wouldn't register it for some reason. I don't know.
Oh wow. Well, we'll
I'm
do
still
something
working
about it.
on
You
it.
know, but the original VHS, I mean, hours and hours. I'm talking like 30, 40 hours of, All Japan Women's VHS tapes. It's here in my house. Oh, I would like to share this with this world. People love to see
Yeah,
it. They gotta see
I
it.
thought
She was going in third year in Japan. It was a tag team, not regular tag team partner, Saki Hasegawa, but you were tagging with Manami Toyota on, on big television, big TV, taping and everything. That's when that breaking your, foot thing happened, ankle, it was just,
no,
it was,
I was tagging with Hasegawa, and it was
oh,
against
okay, going
it was
against
against
Manami.
Manami and
Shimoda?
Toshio
Mita?
Yamada.
Yamada.
Yamada,
Yeah,
okay, Toshio Yamada, all right.
yeah, yeah. Because I caught Minami outside the ring, and that's when the ankle broke.
Big plancha.
Yeah, that was sad. I was standing on a bunch of TV cords. There's something behind me. There was like no place to go, because usually when you catch that impact, you just kind of let it hit you, you absorb it, and then you go down, so you don't get all the force. You're just protecting the person you're catching, and then going down with them, and you can usually absorb all of that. But my ankle
That
happened
day.
to be the weak spot in that whole chain of events, and it just snapped. But I mean, I
It's
have
on
a
tape. It's on tape.
little limited range of motion. Like when I'm squatting, I can't get down far enough on my squats, but I can still use it. So, but I had surgery in Japan, which went really well. I had a really good physical therapist afterwards. And then when I did come back to the States, I had a doctor take a look at it because I wanted to continue physical therapy. And he's like, I don't know how you're walking. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, with that kind of injury, we would have just fused the ankle and called it good. And I'm like, wow. So when it comes to, being in the right place at the right time, I had probably the best care over in Japan that I could have had anywhere, because I'm fully functional. It's wonderful. But the doctors over here didn't think that would have been a possibility.
You hear that, Justin?
It's ironic because it wouldn't have happened unless it was in Japan, right?
That's true too.
But you're a wrestler. You're doing your thing, and you're trying your best. Just
Yeah. Well, it was
shit
an
happen.
accident. Accidents
Yeah,
happen.
yeah,
Yeah.
shit happen.
Yep. I mean, there's worse things.
Up until that point in time, you already had what, at least 600, 800 matches in Japan.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and when we were in Tokyo, we wrestled at least once or twice a week. Yeah, pretty sure. And then when
And
we
the
went
road
on the
show
road,
starts.
yeah, we went on the road for over 30 days, and we covered.
Pretty much every single ground.
I think I was in every island in Japan the time I was there.
Every little town.
Yep, we were on tour buses. The tour bus was on a ferry. We went from northern to southern, Misawa Air Force Base, Yokohama. Um, oh my goodness, we went everywhere. It was wonderful too, because had I not been, part of that group and hadn't been in Japan, hadn't been wrestling, I would have never seen the country that I saw or met the people that I did. We were in, I can't remember the town, but we were in this one small town, and I happened to, just be wandering around. We had a show that night, and I was just walking around town, and I went into this one. It was, a little mom and pop beauty store, and the I couldn't really speak very good Japanese at the time, but the lady there, she's like, "Oh, you come in." I do, she did my makeup, and then she took me to the school down the road to meet her son, who was an elementary school student. So we actually walked down the road, and I met all these little kids and got to meet her son. It was the most amazing thing. It was so cool.
Slice of Japanese life.
Yeah. So I got to meet some really cool people over there. And honestly, being in Japan, it was so nice. The people were so sweet. Even walking around Tokyo at like 2, 3 in the morning, you could do that and feel completely safe. Like you weren't, it's not like downtown Brooklyn or, Miami or any place where you're like, yeah, I'm not leaving the house after 7 p.m. It's a place you can go anywhere and feel completely safe.
When you were wrestling in those smaller towns, like down on the islands or up north, like in the colder areas, like the Misawa part is near, it's like Russia almost, right? Like really, really way up north. What were those like compared to wrestling in Tokyo? Because wrestling in Tokyo is seems like its own vibe or its own feeling.
Yeah, in Tokyo, you've got, Korakuen Hall. You've got places set up for wrestling. When you go to the smaller towns, you're in like a gymnasium. So you're in an old school Japanese, high school type gymnasium. And like the hotel is a modern, or not a modern, but a Japanese style. I don't know, Fumi, you could probably explain it better than I can, but the older grass mats.
Ryokan?
Yeah. Well, but the
Yeah,
All
exactly.
Japan women had shows in the little towns that I've never even heard of.
So
The
the
high school
fans must have been
gymnasium,
so different.
city hall. Yeah. And then what's good about All Japan women is just so self-sufficient, independent company that the ring truck, and they even have those, steel chairs. I mean, those pipe chairs, like 400 of those. Sometimes it's like in a big parking lot, you set up the ring and have a
Oh
show.
yeah, a lot of nighttime parking lot wrestling
Yeah.
shows too. Yeah, so you're setting up the ring, you're setting the chairs up around it, open sky.
Yeah.
So you got
Summertime,
your
lots of bugs.
lots of bugs. If
Cicada.
it rains, you
Yeah, and
just wipe
sometimes
off
it
the rain.
rains, and you wait
Yeah,
for a match to start, and it's ring's still wet, but you just go out there, and
yeah,
well, the ring's kind of wet, but let's do it. And it's a rainy day show, and
yeah.
all
And
those things.
we had a van that would go out, and they would go to the next town, and they would have the posters on the outside of the van, the big speaker on the top. So they're driving through town, putting up
Advertising their
posters
own shows,
everywhere,
yes.
advertising over the loudspeaker as they're driving down the streets of the next
Put up the
town.
poster on the telephone poles and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And then they go out ahead of us, and then we've got the
yeah,
ring
one
truck.
town ahead of you. Yeah,
Yep. And you've got the
what
midget
you call it,
wrestlers.
barnstorming.
Yeah, exactly. The
Yeah.
midget wrestlers, the referees, and all of those guys, they're the ones that are driving the trucks, setting up the rings, setting up the chairs. And then the bus comes in
Politicians.
behind them. Yeah. And then there's many nights on the road, not in Tokyo, but on the road when they're like, hey, we need help tearing down the rings. So the girls would throw in their t-shirts, they're still in their boots. We're out there tearing down the ring, getting it packed up in the truck so they can get moving and going on to the next town. And then you get in the bus and you're using your handy wipes to clean off with, and you're trying to change your outfits, and you wash your your outfits in the sink at the hotel. And when you get on the bus in the morning, you're hanging them from hangers over your seat so they can dry,
On the bus.
and you're sleeping on the bus. Yeah. So it's a complete carny show when you're on the road, but it works and it's fabulous.
Yeah, yeah, and concession and the company president, cooking
Yeah.
fried noodles or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but the when you work hard like that and everybody works together, you form that bond and everybody's got that respect of each other that, it just makes for more of a family than a company. And I think that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why they did so well when they did, was because everybody was all in. They're fully invested. Their blood, sweat, and tears were going to put on the show. So that was the great thing about it.
Yeah, none of those things exist anymore, though, even in Japan.
When I go without it, my body starts to ache.
Nobody's traveling or not?
No travels, but like when you look at big companies like New Japan Pro Wrestling, they operate like WWE. Big
Just the big
towns,
shows?
big productions. Nicer buses, nicer hotels. And big production, yeah, and less shows. New Japan's the biggest company, but runs 120 shows a year. That's it. Not before COVID. Yeah.
Right. How is it now with the COVID?
J- Most Japanese companies, bigger ones, they're running social distance seating. They created a setup, that you need the 4 meters away from the ring. Um, every company has to have the guardrails, around the ring.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, and the ringside seating only 2 rows, social distance, of course. And yeah, and
Right.
also a lot of new rules. Audience will be wearing masks at all time. No standing up, no yelling, no giving high fives, no touching wrestlers, nothing. Just you sit in the seat and clap. This is just new normal kind of thing.
Hmm.
Wrestling is not completely separate from what's happening in the real world.
Well, at least it's not virtual reality like it is here.
But that's okay though. That's like not just wrestling, but when you watch shows like America's Got Talent, you got the Zoom screen all over the building.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so not
That,
just wrestling, but that's what's happening. It's 2020.
but it
That's
takes the spark
amazing.
out of it.
What you yeah, it was like almost, close to 30 years ago. Of course, wrestling is wrestling. The hurt of it is the same, but technology, has
Right,
changed it.
but being in front of, thousands of people and hearing them yell and, being in the ring, it gives you that extra energy that having television monitors or, you know, quiet handful of people out in the audience just doesn't give you.
Yeah. A
You
good
don't get
thing
that
about
feeling.
wrestling audience and wrestling fans, that almost 30 years later, they have not forgotten Debbie Malenko. Really.
No way.
Isn't that good though?
I think
That
so.
is wonderful. I want to go back over too. This whole COVID thing has put a damper in my plans, because when this hit, I was supposed to go to Mexico for 3 weeks. I was going to go down with Esther in Mexico City there and do some training and do some shows and things. So that was going to be, the start of, the new era.
Well,
But it
stay in
kind of,
shape, the time
oh, I
will come.
am.
Yeah, stay in shape. And I believe that the thing like, Josh Burnett's Blood Sport, or the name is kind of scary, but very legitimate looking wrestling that might be perfect for you.
Well, I can't wait too long, or too long, because
Well, stay in shape.
people
Yeah,
won't want
stay in
to see
shape.
me if I'm too old. But yeah, but I'm doing powerlifting, strongman lifting. My son's into that. He wants to do that professionally, which is awesome. So
Yeah,
we're
that's like a really that's like amazing thing, After you got hurt and you had to go home, and well, maybe you were going to come back to Japan and wrestle a little bit longer, but you pretty much disappeared from face of the earth, and then you moved from Tampa, Florida to where? To Anchorage, Alaska,
well,
or
I
you had
went
another
from
life
I
from
went
Tampa to where?
from Florida to Maine to Fairbanks,
Yeah,
Alaska.
yeah.
Um,
See,
yeah, and I kind of lost track because back in the day, if you didn't have someone's phone number written down, you didn't have it in your
before
cell
internet,
phone.
yes.
Yeah, it was before cell phone and internet. So, if you couldn't get a hold of someone, you were, yeah,
Yeah, losing phone
it
number was
could
it
be
that
for you.
was the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't as easy to keep in touch with people back then as it is now. So,
Yeah, so about 10 year, 15-year period, about 10-year period, I didn't hear from you, and then I couldn't find you, and
right.
you did come back once, 2001, with Rossi Ogawa's Arceon group.
Yeah, I wrestled. It was
Had the
just
match.
a what do you call them? Just a time exhibition match with Bionic J.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that was in actually when 9/11 happened. So that was 2001.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was nice to do, but I did until
Well,
what,
you were
4 years
raising your
ago.
kids too.
Yeah, yeah, that's true too. And Dean told me, it's tough to be on the road and raise a family. So you kind of
Yeah.
got to choose what you're going to do, because you can't, being a dad is hard enough. His kids were like, are we taking dad to work? And they thought he worked at the airport, because whenever they dropped him off, it was at the airport so he could go, work for WWE wherever they were. But he was like, Deb, it's just tough being on the road. So that kind of encouraged me just to stay home and, be a mom
Did
and
what you had to do. Yeah,
do what I have to do. And I don't regret it, because I've got
definitely.
fabulous kids. They're wonderful people. But now that they're older, it's okay. I need to get back to me. I want to do what I love to
It's
do.
wonderful
So
though, because compared to that, male life, being male is almost just so boring. Because
I,
you can,
I,
female, you can do a lot more.
yeah, there's so much more
Yeah,
you can do.
yeah, guys are so boring. Really. Well, but look, I've been doing the same thing in the meantime, all these years.
well,
Yeah,
you've got fur babies at home.
Yeah, I
yeah,
heard him
that
earlier.
too. Yeah.
Kiki.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, once upon a time, I had like 7 cats and a dog.
Oh my.
Wow.
Yeah, but the one is a dog's life, but what, 10 to 15 years? Cat's life 10 to 15 years, and one by one they leave. It's kind of really
That
sad.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's
Now I'm
true.
down to 3 cats.
I'm down to one dog. We had three,
Yeah.
and um, we lost one well, last winter we lost one, and the winter before that. So we're down to one, and she's just spoiled as can be, because
Of
she's the last
course.
one standing.
Of
So yeah,
course. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I can't. I don't want to think about like losing what I have now. And
no, but
but
just give them a good life while you have them and enjoy it.
of course, I'm doing
Yeah,
my best. But
yeah.
for wrestling, yeah, I have faith in it that you stay in working shape. You always go to gym. That without wrestling, yes, you always do. And the
I just
time will
I just
come that you'll go back to the ring. Yeah.
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 And I'm looking forward to that because I really want to. It's my passion. That's what I love to do. But how many people don't know? How many generations have been born and don't know Malenkos? They
Yeah, of
don't
course, because
know
today's
their
wrestling fans,
no.
the, the Hulk Hogan is ancient. You know, most of
Oh,
the
I
wrestling
know.
fan didn't even witness Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock Dwayne Johnson. Most people in the world out there think Dwayne Johnson is an actor who happened to
And
be a
not a
wrestler once
wrestler.
upon a time. It's not like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was before them. So
Yeah.
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 It's
You're
So
not
they
wrestling
that
wouldn't
people like
long
know
Paul
who
ago,
I
though.
Nakano. Yeah.
am.
It's not that. It's just crazy how, I mean, it's only 30 years ago. That's not, I remember those times. I'm not that old, but I'm not that young either. But it's, it's just a lot has happened. A lot has happened just in this year alone. About 30 years.
That's
It's
true.
just,
Yeah. It gave another life to the video footage,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now, people around the world can see it almost instantaneous. If you do something in, you know, any country, if you YouTube it, you stream it, you video it, it's out there. Everybody
Yeah. And then
gets to
we're
see it.
talking to each other like this.
Three people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never thought this podcast thing I mean, like, I never even imagined it would be not just Skype or Zoom or the let alone social media thing. And
Well,
remember, Dave, that
back in the day, it was
yeah,
radio
making
and
a long
TV.
distance phone call was the super expensive thing, and you didn't even call home to your, I mean, you didn't even call your mom, right?
Right.
Yeah, it was like so
Yeah.
expensive. There was in front of this All Japan Women's building. It's no longer, it's a parking lot now, but the phone booth in front of
Yep.
the building, remember?
Yeah, I remember taking the phone cards out there and calling
Phone
from the
cards,
phone
that's
booth. Yeah.
ancient too. The telephone card that you can make a certain number of phone calls. That the girls go in a phone booth calling their parents, crying. That phone booth still exists.
Man, things just change. That is crazy.
Yeah, but we're still here.
Yeah,
And
we
you
are
are
still
going to,
here.
you are going to wrestle again. Yes.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
thinking of changing my look a little bit though.
Like
Also,
what?
I don't know if I want to do this the Steiner singlet anymore.
Okay. What are you gonna do?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I think I might want to be a little more girly, a little more pretty.
Really?
Ooh.
I
Okay.
haven't decided. Still wrestle the same though.
Oh, you have to.
Yeah. Yeah, still
A little
wrestle
more
the same.
girly, huh?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe.
That's right. That's fine. That's fine. I ain't gonna say
I mean,
anything.
how many wrestlers reinvent themselves? Macho Man went from tights to,
Yeah, because they stayed the entire time. You had this, time away from it. Yeah.
right, right.
You gotta go back to where you were first.
I don't know about that.
All right, that's fine. We can disagree.
I mean, how many people don't know me that would not know any different if I jumped in the ring in a different type of outfit? Yeah.
Well, that is another topic that we have to debate.
Oh, just because I'm getting your hackles up, you don't agree with me.
No, that's fine. No, we agree to disagree.
although I think there would be different expectations coming from the fans in Japan versus coming from fans in, say, the United States or the United Kingdom. There just might be different expectations because the fans were introduced in different ways. I think in Japan, in general, I think they would expect to see who they saw. Whereas if you were kind of being reintroduced,
But yeah, because Debbie Malenko
sky's
is
the
not
limit.
exactly rookie. She had time away from the ring, and that story need to be told before she goes back in the ring. Yeah, no,
Gab,
Maybe.
you could do whatever the hell you want.
of course, of course, of course. Yeah, but
Well,
the,
maybe
the,
I'll
the,
get
the reason we have this podcast program today is that we want people to know more about you, more about Debbie Malenko, and in heyday of Japanese women's wrestling, and you are
right.
in there and experienced, and then you're part of the history and part of the legacy and your own story in history, and the craft of this Malenko wrestling, and the only woman wrestler who ever trained by Karl Gotch. Karl Gotch does not touch women.
Maybe I'll just come out in my UWF singlet.
I don't
and
know. Yeah,
short
no,
black
no, no.
boots
I'm not
and
saying that.
I'll just stretch everybody. There we go.
The story need to be told. What you're about,
Right.
Yeah.
But like Fumi and I have talked about, Fumi talks about people need to see the glimpse of how it was, like the glimpse of what was going on. And for fans that don't speak Japanese, it's very, very difficult to get a.
Is it?
I think so. I mean, okay, we have YouTube, we have magazines, but to get to those deeper nuances that were in those
Yeah.
angles back then, or to get how the crowd was interpreting certain things, that definitely
Well, I
adds
still
to
believe that the wrestling should not have language barrier.
exactly.
That the
I feel the
story
same.
should be told in that ring.
I'm addicted to their Look at here, baby. Never, 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 never get enough.
I mean, we could, tell the story, tell what was going on, what's behind it, where did this person come from? Why does Debbie have this image? Or why does Bull have this image? Or, why does Hokuto have this fire? Where did this come from? And, just the story behind it so people could appreciate it, because no one over here knows anything about them. I see it on Meltzer a lot, Dave, that, you like the Japanese wrestling better than the American, or, you're stuck in the 80s. And I think a lot of that, one, they just like to razz him, but two, they don't understand it.
I think that might
They
be a big part
they
of
don't
it.
yeah, they don't understand the wrestling back then and why it's as great as it is. And
There's
maybe I'm just
context.
the nerd for it.
No,
Yeah,
there's
context
context
to it.
for it. I mean, if you don't know the context, some people just think that they watch a match and they think it's just two guys or two girls just slapping each other for no reason. But it can look like that if you don't have any context, and if you
Right,
don't understand
exactly.
what anybody's saying. And there shouldn't be a pressure on everybody to know exactly what takes place in a Japanese wrestling ring. It's supposed to be, it's wrestling. It's for everybody. So where does the barrier begin or end? You know what I mean? So I think something like a director's cut, kind of director's commentary over a match would help, help
Yeah.
everyone see it from a different perspective, from more authentic perspective or authoritative perspective.
Right. And the more you put out there with the more information, some of the younger generations might look at it and go, "Oh, that's kind of cool. Did you know?" And just start talking about it. And it's almost like, Bruce Lee movies.
Well, they have to see it.
Everybody,
Yeah.
Well, discovering
yeah,
80s music again.
exactly.
Well, there's the demand for good women's wrestling now, more and more. You see it more and more on TV. It's slow, but it's coming, and we see
Yeah.
that
And it's improving. It's getting better. They're having better matches, and it's great. It's slow. It's been slow and evolving, but it's wonderful to see the change and see how much more they're letting them do and how talented they are.
I feel like
Yeah,
you see
today's
it
wrestler,
more.
yes.
You see it more in single wrestlers as opposed to a whole company. You know what I mean? You say, "Oh, that one, she's really good," or but then they disappear. There's not like a
Yeah. Well, one
consistency
person
yet.
like Mickey James, she's really good.
Yeah,
But she has to bounce from company to company to company to work because nobody will put her full time, which is a total waste of talent. I mean, and your true wrestling fan loves her. No matter who she works for, they're going to watch her because she's really good. The fans get it, the companies don't, which is silly to me.
It's a complicated, weird, and wacky system, wrestling.
It's stupid.
Well,
You know,
how
I,
about
I look at Natalie Neidhart, Natasha. They used her to carry matches. She is so talented and so good at what she does. They'll put all the new people with her just to have a good match because she can make anybody look good.
that's right.
But do they push her as a star? No. They use her as a workhorse to make everybody else look good. And then they run their storylines and they're like, oh, we need a good match. We'll put them with her.
Well, before we wrap up, is there anything either of you would like to talk about?
Yeah, we pretty much jumped one topic to another. So
We have
um,
been everywhere,
yeah,
haven't we?
so
We've been
I am
everywhere.
not so sure that our listeners out there followed everything and they were with it. I'm not so sure, but yeah. Well,
I
we can
think
do
we
it
lost them a
again
long time
because
ago. Yeah.
it's very important to know that we were there. That we like to have people know more about it.
Yeah, we could do this
Yeah.
again. Next time we can pick some
All right, we'll
topics
definitely do it again. Okay.
or a match or something, or it really depends because it's up to you, Deb. Whatever you want to take on.
I'm game.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we can keep it loose, keep it fluid for now, and see what works. But
All right. So
So-
long from Tokyo. Right.